So before we get started with bottling, we have to just do a little bit of prep work. It'll just take a couple minutes to get everything set up for what you need to bottle today. If you purchased your bottles through us, you would have received 12 of these amber glass 750 milliliter bottles. And you would have received these swing tops here too. Now these swing tops, they're reusable, replaceable. You want to make sure that you take the swing top with the O-ring seal like that, white cap at the top, ring at the top, and we're going to attach it to the top of this bottle. So to do it the easiest way, I like to just kind of rest that on top to make sure that it lines up. And then you're going to use the prong of this metal right here into the side of the bottle, and you're going to pull it around to the other side. It just snaps in there. You can check if it's right, if you can set that on top and then push this ring down. That means that it's now sealed and that can actually carbonate in this bottle now. A couple weeks from now, you'll be able to open this beer and you just press on these two ends right here to open it up. Top swings off, and you can actually reseal the bottle again just like that. If you don't drink it all in one day, you can drink it the next day too. You don't want to leave it for more than one day though, because it will start to oxidize. Now, if you didn't buy it from us, you won't have these bottles. You'll have your own growlers. And with that, we've just supplied you with 5 of these caps here. These are just really good caps. They've got a nice liner on the inside, and you can actually screw them down really nice and tight so that you'll be able to carbonate inside of these glass growlers. If you have the growlers, you don't really have to do much. You just got to make sure you have those 5 caps ready. But if you have those swing tops, you want to make sure you have all 12 of them assembled before you start bottling, because you don't want to leave them once they're full. You don't want to have to attach these swing tops afterwards. The other thing that you would have received from us is a length of tubing and then a bottle filler. Now this bottle filler, mine has a little water left in here, I'm just going to drain. Bottle filler has a spring tip on the end so that it actually won't drain from your fermenter unless it reaches the bottom of the bottle. So when you're filling, it's actually going to go down and press in the bottom of the bottle and then release all the beer inside. But in order to do that, we have to be able to attach it to the fermenter that we provided. And that's where the tubing comes in. So you'll see here, I've got just a glass of hot water, and then I've got these scissors. And what I want to do is I'm just going to cut essentially half of the length of that plus another half of the length of that to attach to the fermenter. So what we're looking to do is just cut somewhere between 2 and 2.5 inches off this tubing. And you just want to make sure you cut it nice and straight and square. You don't want to have a bunch of like little angles to it or little pieces hanging off of it. And the reason I have the hot water is just to make things fit better. So I just dip the end in the hot water. It just makes it a little bit softer. And then you're going to take that and you're going to stick it inside of this plastic tube here. And it has to go all the way down there. So you got to make sure you press really hard. And it should actually seal to the center line of this little plastic adapter. And then what will happen is when we get to the bottling stage, we'll be able to put this rubber tubing right on the spigot. And then you have your own little wand and you'll be able to just bring your bottle up, fill, bring it back down and stop. But you want to make sure you cut 2 to 2.5 inches of that tubing, dunk it in the hot water so that it gets a nice firm seat in there. And once you have your bottle filling wand and your packaging ready, then we can move on to the next step. So now we're going to take our bottles and we're going to start to package our beer. And you want to get your fermenter out of that dark room temperature place, probably your closet that you put it in. And you want to carry it slowly and carefully over to your table or your countertop, some level surface. But it's really important that when we do so, and I'm just going to do it with a water test here, but when we do so, we don't want to stir up the product. So if you remember, we're trying to keep all of the yeast that's settled out of this is going to have settled towards the back because we placed that book or that block under here. Now, we want to make sure that we keep that back there because the idea is we don't have to do any sort of filtration or anything with the product now because the yeast has settled towards the back and we're just going to bottle off of the front and we're going to get a nice clean product because of that. All right, so now that we are at our table, we've got our fermenter with our beer in it. What I have here is I used the same stock pot that we brewed in. I made up a batch of sanitizer. So you have Star San left over from our brew day. And what you want to do is take 1 tablespoon of that and put it into 2 gallons of water inside your pot. And we're going to use that for all of the different steps of bottling today. So go ahead and get 2 gallons of water in your pot with 1 tablespoon of Star San. Then you're going to, once you have that prepped, everything that touches the packaging needs to be sanitized. So starting with your bottling wand, the first step we're actually going to do is dunk it in the hot water to begin with, because I want to loosen up the open end of this tubing here so that it fits easily onto the spigot. And you don't need to get it all the way on there. It doesn't need to seal to the top, but you want to at least pass 2 of the barbs and probably up to that 3rd barb. While you're putting it on, it is very important that you hold your finger on the top of the spigot so that you're not pushing all the pressure into your vessel here. You're just pushing together the tubing and the spigot. We'll take this off here, and now that it's already been widened out, it'll fit back on there, no problem. So this is the first thing we're going to sanitize. And we're going to go ahead and just dunk this in. We're going to put it in this end, flip it over, put it in this end. Make sure we get the spring tip sanitized. So just like push it in and out a couple times there and, while it's on the bottom of the pot. And then you can actually just use your hand to make sure that it gets some inside, it gets on the outside. You want to make sure the whole thing is coated and covered. And it's very important that we reassemble this while it's still wet. So you want this tubing to still be wet, because the sanitizer will continue acting while it's wet, and it's going to sanitize what it actually connects to here. Remembering to push down on this nozzle as you push the tubing up. Now, this vessel is ready. We can actually open this if we wanted to. And this spring tip filler holds all of the beer inside because it hasn't been opened yet. So we're fine there. I'm going to close it just for now while I show you the other steps. So now you've got your bottle of or your bucket of sanitizer. You want to sanitize whatever you're going to put the beer into. So I'm going to do the swing top bottle first. I'm going to put it into my pot. I'm going to roll it around. I want to make sure that the inside and the outside gets covered, as well as the cap. The cap's really important to get covered as well. So every single part of this bottle gets wet and it gets covered. And then this is really, really easy. All you got to do is make sure your spigot's on, put the bottle underneath, and bring it up. You don't have to move the fermenter, you don't have to move the nozzle. You're just bringing the bottle up, and you can hear it start to flow, and it's running down. It's filling the bottle. And it takes a few seconds because you're putting 750 milliliters of your beer into this one bottle. I should have done one other step first. We want to just remove this bung because we're creating a vacuum inside of there. So you can just pull this bung entirely out and just set it aside wherever, just to keep an open thing there. Don't let anything fall inside your beer, obviously, but we now need the air to come back in so that we can get the flow going. And so now I'm watching the liquid level as it comes up the side of the glass here. I'm seeing it through the neck of the bottle. And where I want to stop is just below this lip here. So not at the widest part of the neck here, but there's another lip. And I want to stop right there because the idea is this tube is displacing some of the volume in here. And now that I pull this away, all of that now becomes extra space. And notice I don't have to worry about it leaking or anything. The spring tip already closes it. And now that the tube is no longer in it, even though I filled it to here, my fill line is actually right at the widest bulge of this neck here, and that's exactly where we want this bottle to be filled. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to do that with all of our bottles, or we're going to do it with our growlers. So with the growler, same exact thing. Sanitize every single time. Make sure it's completely soaked. Make sure it's empty when we start to fill it up. And then just go to the bottom of the tube and let it start filling. And now with the growler, your fill mark, you want it to be right at the handle. When you get to this handle, you let this tube come out of it, you should fall right to the bottom of the neck. So you want to stop filling when you reach the handle, and you want the fill line to be right at the bottom of the neck. Alright, so you either filled 12 of these 750 milliliter bottles, or you filled about 5 of these 64 ounce growlers. And the next step is you should have a bag with 60 carbonation drops in them. They're just sugar drops. For this 750 milliliter bottle, we'll put 2 of those drops in. And for this 64 ounce growler, we would put in 4 drops. You can adjust the carbonation of your beer with these drops as well. So if you wanted something that's just a little bit of carbonation, just a tiny bit of fizz when you open it, you could actually cut that down to like 1.5 drops for the 750 milliliter bottle, or 3 drops for the growler, and that would actually reduce the carbonation level, because what we're doing is we're dropping these drops in so that the sugar will get eaten by the yeast inside the bottle. Now we've sealed it, and the carbonation can't come out this time. Before we had the airlock, show you that. So we had the airlock up here, and that was allowing all the CO2 to escape. So we weren't carbonating in this plastic vessel, but now that we have this glass bottle, we can actually make carbonation in here. So I dropped in my 2 carbonation drops here, just drop them straight in, and then the easiest thing to do is just give them a flip. So you just want to flip it, because what you want to do is, you hear that? You want to hear that freely moving in there. That means that it's going to start to dissolve and the yeast is going to eat that. With the growler, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to drop in those 4 carbonation drops, but then you're going to, because we haven't sanitized this cap yet, you're going to sanitize the cap before you screw it very tightly down. Do not use a wrench or anything to tighten that, but you do want it as tight as you can get with wet hands. So I've got my hands wet from the sanitizer. The cap is wet from the sanitizer. I'm tightening it as much as I can to make sure we get that firm seal. And then we go and we put these in that same area that we fermented. In 10 to 14 days, these are ready to drink.